Myself, I'm Reginald Vossen. I'm the manager of a network in Flanders. That's the northern part of Belgium, the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, at about 5.5 to 6 million inhabitants. And we have a rather big group of business angels over there at about 180 members. And we exist, as a matter of fact, already like 8 years now in this form. But before that, we had 4 smaller networks. I'll come to that also. I have some colleagues there. Perhaps you present yourself then at a certain moment when you intervene or come. I suppose we do it that way? Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to make clear that the network which we have in Flanders is a rather structured network. So it's really a network, not so much a group, but more a structured network which have always been a cooperation, public-private partnership between the Flemish government and the business angels and the private initiatives. The first networks in Belgium, they were in 1998 established. And as a matter of fact, we had 4 networks which were in place at that moment. They got a support from the government of 50% of their annual budget. So there was no minimum or maximum set. Okay, well, the maximum was, as a matter of fact, 77,000 euro each. But we didn't receive that money that high. But okay, the 4 networks had the possibility to get 50% of their budget financed to the government. We worked in this system like 4 to 5 years, but at a certain moment we thought it would be better to merge these 4 networks into one big network. Each of these networks had like 30 to 40 members, which were rather small groups, which didn't bring much of a surplus in activities, because the group was too small, we think. So we brought them together in one big network, which up until now has 185 members. Then we had 3 periods of support from the government as well, 2004 to 2006, and also 2007 to 2010 had the same financial input from the government, saying there was a fixed support per year, 138,000 euro, quite some money, but the biggest part, the biggest chunk was in output-based financing, so every time we got a deal, we get some money. The total there was like 308,000 euro. Then we entered in 2011 and we said, okay, government, it's nice that you work this way, but we'd like to make some major investments the next years, so we try them to convince them to put more money on the fixed side, which is a little bit atypical as financing mechanism, but because of the big investments we want to make in this 4-year times, we ask them to put 90% in fixed support. I think we are very atypical in having so much money of the government coming into these operations. To give you a little image, the total team for the network is like 12, 13 people who are busy with this kind of things. All independent people, freelancers, working or on the business angel side, or on the co-investment funds, or on business plan competitions, and some specific projects we run. To get this kind of money in, I think there are some critical factors to success. You put clear targets in coordination with the government. You have to be transparent about these targets, but also in the way you can get there. So if in one specific year you don't get your target, communicate about this on the beforehand rather than afterwards. We had very good collaborations with the regional development agencies. As a matter of fact, our first offices were based with the regional development agencies, but afterwards we moved out to get a more private image. On our board there is someone from the government which is following the operations, and also we get a lot of startup finance when we want to try new things in the market. So then we get up to 90% of the finance of that specific project. It's a regional support, so in Belgium there's a system of the regions, the 3 regions, so French-speaking, Dutch-speaking, and Brussels is a separate region. We have this regional support from the Flanders region because economic development is a regional matter there. And it's an inconvenience on that is that The investments the government wants to make, or the support they want to deliver, is only for investments made in that region. We want to work also outside of that region, so we have got the opportunity to open up the network also to make deals in other regions in Belgium or abroad, but then without support. So that's the support towards a network as an operator. Then we have some co-financing mechanisms. First of all is a business angel loan. It's a national matter, so it's the Belgian government giving this loan through a participation fund. It's like if you give €1 as a business angel to a company, they will provide €1 as a subordinated loan. That's a very big advantage because they don't become shareholder in the company, which makes that it's no conflict between government, private, and also no conflict between business angels and government. It's a very low interest rate, and they have a postponed paid back for the capital, so it's a very interesting product to use, and it's up to €125,000. Very big advantage. You can only get this loan through a business angel network. That was for us was that a very important prerequisite, because we wanted this to drag business angels to get into networks. Then we put up some co-financing funds ourselves. The first one was established in 2007 with the capital of business angels brought together by 42 business angels, and we matched this with 50% of the capital from the government. That's how we tried to convince the government to invest themselves as well. With this fund, we could invest up to twice the amount of the business angel, and the period of investment was 5 years, 2007 till 2011. We've learned some lessons about that period, so we built now a new co-investment fund, the second one. There we have made a decision to make it much more bigger. As Nelson told this morning, the first fund was like €7 million, it was too small. With this one, we aim at 14 to 15 million euro to go further along with the entrepreneur. That means we had to find more money, and because times weren't that favorable in 2011 when we went for fundraising, I convinced the ING Bank to come along. So what did we do? We had, apart from the business angels, 45 business angels put 30% of the capital, 30% was matched by ING Bank, 40% to the government. With this fund, we can invest up to 4 times the amount of the business angel. Very specific for this fund also is that we also aim at merger and acquisitions. It's, I think, one of the first funds to also address that market. To be complete, there's also a regional support system through a guarantee scheme for business angels. It's a Wallonian initiative. It's on the south side of Belgium. And they give a guarantee to business angels for the investment they make in the companies. It's limited in time. It's also limited in amount. And there is a certain cost on it. I must say the experiences are not that great with this scheme, because it's too expensive, and perhaps it could give some perverse effects when the company doesn't perform that well. The entrepreneur and the business angel have different, how should I say, final decisions they could make. If the company doesn't perform, the entrepreneur wants to keep on running the company, and perhaps the business angel wants to get his guarantee. There is also a tax initiative, a very small one. It's called the win-win loan, and that's a private person who gives a subordinated loan to a company. He can get a tax reduction and also a guarantee on the amount he invests through a refund of up until 30%. There is no link to the business angels networks whatsoever, and I think it's not so very good to put these kind of things in the market. Why not? It gives the entrepreneur an idea, because you see the interest rate is between 2 and 4% in risk capital. I don't think it's the right way to promote risk capital towards entrepreneurs They think it should be cheap, but afterwards there come the business angels with other figures in mind. I think that's it about it. So, what are my conclusions? Government can and perhaps should intervene at certain level, but please do this in partnership with the existing bodies, without disturbing the market and also without creating more perverse effects. And that was my introduction from the Flemish side. I pass the word to one of my colleagues.
You put it there, because everyone has the microphone. Okay, you go. Presentation, and then I talk.
All right, can everybody hear me through this microphone? All right, good. I'm going to give a general talk about government incentives rather than the specifics for my particular country. And I believe that there are basically 5 levers that government can pull in order to promote business angel activity. The first is we need a sensible business environment. We need a legal structure that we can trust, and until that's in place, business angels can't invest at all. So the kind of general groundwork that goes in there. The second lever which government is comfortable with and generally activates is the supply of investable companies. Generally, they invest in investor-ready, and a great deal of money goes into investor-ready programs. If anybody here is running an investor-ready program, I'm happy to talk afterwards as to why I think 95% of investor-ready programs in the world are really bad. And that's largely because they're run by people who are not connected to investors. They're run in isolation from the investment community. The third one is support for business angel groups and training. Then is the tax incentives, and then is the co-funds. Normally, government intervenes because they've been told that there is an equity gap, there's a cash gap. But I think it's very important that government and others realise that simply putting more money into the system will not solve the problem, because it has to be recognised that there is also other significant gaps in the market in terms of knowledge. The entrepreneurs are recognised often as not having knowledge, and therefore they're given investor-ready training. But the reality is that most business angels also lack knowledge in the investment process. And there's also skills gap. Most business angels, certainly when they start, have never done an investment before. They need investment in them in order to build up the skills so that you can apply the extra money you put into the system. So we identify that the equity gap is made up of several sides. There are problems with the entrepreneur needing education and help, but there's also problems with business angels and investors needing help. And there's also problems with lawyers and accountants and technology transfer managers. They also need explanation as to how angel investing really works. And in order to build a proper economy and a proper local angel network or investment network, you need to address all of these all at the same time. Now, we've been fortunate in Scotland to be able to address these, and we have basically pooled all 5 levers. We have had government action from the UK government in relation to tax incentives and financial regulation, making it legal to be a business angel. It used to be illegal to be a business angel. We've had the Scottish government give education to angels, help groups form and do the co-investment fund, and we've been able to use European funding for groups education and the co-fund. And the effect that that's had since 1996 is to increase the amount of angel investing we've done on a per annum basis from €3 million to, the last numbers I have are 2010, €61 million of funding. So our market has developed very considerably because we've been addressing it in this multi-pronged manner, not simply focusing on throwing money at it, but significantly throwing education into the mix as well. So I believe that to build such success, you have to do it in an evolutionary way. You have to start off by recognizing the significant weaknesses that there are amongst all of the players. Now, the players, particularly business angels, will never admit that they are weak or they do not have the knowledge. And therefore, just as a small example, we don't run angel training classes in Scotland, because all our angels are masters of the universe and know everything that there is to know about being an entrepreneur. So we only ever run master classes. And that at least gets them in the door, and then we can explain to them why they actually don't understand the valuation and the due diligence and the deal structuring and what exit values are really being achieved for companies around Europe. So I think the first stage before you do these things in terms of co-funds is very much the education across the board. You're building the capacity. So what do? We use tax incentives to persuade investors to invest in business angel activity instead of, for example, real estate. Business angel activity takes 6 or 8 years to get a return. Real estate used to be much quicker. So we persuade business angels to come into the marketplace. We then use funding to educate that market, those angels, so that they build their skill base, and we educate the entrepreneurs. That's the starting point. And then we bring in co-funds, and the reason we use co-funds is to give the angels more firepower, so they can use their skills to support the company for longer. Because in Scotland we have very few venture capital companies. So our angels are supporting a company with funding for 5 or 6 years. And it takes a lot of money for an angel to do that by themselves. So there's a process of development that I think you have to go through. Now, there's a lot of interest amongst angel groups and other organizations about applying for example, European funding. And one of the hats I wear is a director of the organization in Scotland that is responsible for the administration and allocation of European structural funds. So what are the problems we see with people applying for funding? Well, first of all, there's a lack of data. People come along and say, give us money because there's a problem here, but they don't measure the problem properly. And one of the things that all business angel organizations must do, and is a key driver within EBAN, is collect information about what is actually happening. How many deals are really happening? How many deals are not happening? Without that real data, it's very difficult to justify to government that they give you money. There's no track record of success. Business angeling takes a long time. So when a business angel group comes along and says, give us some money and we'll manage it on your behalf, the banks, the European bank will turn around and what's your track record? Well, we've only been business angels for 6 years. We haven't had any exits yet. So in their eyes, you have no track record. So you have to go to other countries and borrow their data to bring it in. There is a general resistance in many countries I go to from economic development organizations. Why should we use public money to make rich people richer? Why should we use public money to make business angels richer than they are? And you have to have an argument and demonstrate that the reason you do that is that business angels can generally do a lot of other things with their money. You know, we don't have to be business angels. We can go and play golf, or we can go and sail our yachts around the Mediterranean, or whatever it is that you rich angels do. So you have to explain to government that, yes, you have to invest in this in order to persuade angels to actually take this long-term risk. One of the problems I see with applications for funding is that, frankly, the application is structured in order to pay a fee to the applicant. It is perfectly clear that they've decided we want to be VCs and we'll take 2.5% or 3% management fee, and there's actually no real substance in the application as to what you're going to do to create what government are interested in, and that's jobs and tax return. So if you're going to make an application, you have to justify it to government on the back of what government's interested in, not on the back of I'm going to get a management fee. So that's a conflicts of interest. There's just too much, give me some money so that I can be a fund manager. We also have developed a conflict over the last few years in economic development terms with co-investment funds, that people in economic development believe that an exit is bad, because an exit is perceived as the end of the company. The company is going to be bought, the Scottish company is going to be bought probably by an American company and be taken away. And we actually have to collect data to show that having an exit is a good thing. Putting money into the pockets of entrepreneurs is a good thing, because those entrepreneurs have then got money they can invest in their second and their third and their fourth company. So you have to build up economic evidence all the time of what it means to create entrepreneurial wealth in a country. I believe absolutely, as I said earlier today, that the development models need to be built for local conditions. The model that works today in Scotland will not work today in Russia or France or Estonia. You have to develop it and change it for local conditions. So the co-fund that we have in Scotland has been modified by the Canadians. It has been taken and modified by people in New Zealand, but they've adapted it for their own territories. And I think that's very, very important, that you don't just try and copy what we do today, but you look at the history of how we got to where we are. I think there is also a danger in economic development terms of over-expectation of the results. I'm afraid that too many people in economic development read about big exits and big returns coming out of Silicon Valley and think that we can do the same in Scotland. And the answer is, frankly, we were probably not going to do that. And we have to make sure that the expectation of success is set at a sensible level. And you have to demonstrate leverage. You have to demonstrate that, yes, the public sector is putting money in, but it really is being followed up and multiplied by the private sector. Now, we were asked a couple of questions when we were asked to prepare the notes. And one of the questions we were asked is, how can BANs, business angel networks, develop a sustainable business model independent of public support? This is quite interesting for us. So the first point I would make is that Link, my organisation, we don't regard ourselves as a business, first off. So just the use of business model. We are not in the business of making money out of the process of angel investing. Neither are our angel groups. We don't make money out of the process of investing. We make money out of successful investments. And that's quite significantly different. The people that we have are not trying to be fund managers. They're just trying to run the process. But we are aware that we will come to the end of an ERDF European funding program in 2014. So we are planning on the basis that our groups will not receive public funding after 2014. So what are we doing? Well, first of all, we're looking at United States and Canada and Australia, because they have angel groups and they don't have any public support for the groups. So we're looking and copying what they're doing. So you've got many people here from overseas and elsewhere, so copy their ideas. We're improving the process to make it more efficient and therefore less expensive to do investment deals. So we now have a common investment agreement which is used pretty much by all 20 of our investment groups in Scotland. And that makes life a lot easier to do deals. And the entrepreneur can see it way in advance of the negotiation starting. And that speeds the process up and makes it much more efficient. We're educating our business angels so that the business angels themselves, not necessarily a professional manager, does a lot of the work. We're not relying on one manager paid a full-time salary to do due diligence. We're teaching the angels how to do it themselves. But obviously, we are also exploring sponsorship, membership fees, deal fees, and various other forms of income. But we're definitely driving a model which is very efficient and doesn't require a lot of money to invest in it. And finally, we were asked some questions. A drawback on national support programs is that they are limited to supporting local investments. Because I think EBAN in particular has a drive, in Europe, Central in Brussels has a drive for cross-border investing. So is government support a problem? Well, yes, it is for cross-border investing, but what would you expect? You don't really expect the Scottish Government to support Scottish business angels to invest in Italian companies, do you? Scottish taxpayers want it spent locally, so that's the name of the game. I'm afraid you just got to accept that. Does this impact the investment choice of business angels? Well, yes. The tax system in the United Kingdom is such that it is almost impossible, I think, for a UK investor to find a deal that is attractive outside of the US. As of the 6th of April, we now have a tax incentive that effectively gives, on the first 100,000 investment that an angel makes, 78% discount from the government. 78%. And the capital gains are free. So that's very much focusing British investors to invest in Britain. And the question was then, well, does that affect the internationalisation of the startups? No, because we live in a country in Scotland where there are 5 million people. There is no domestic market. Every startup that we invest in has the idea of going international from day one. So the fact that we're focusing the investment money locally does not make our companies local. They wouldn't survive. Thank you.
This is my turn now. Unfortunately, we don't have a moderator, and neither of us is prepared to be a moderator because we didn't think that the moderator wouldn't come. But let me suggest the following. Actually, I don't have any presentation, and the reason for that is that there is only one point I wanted to touch. But before I do that, let me suggest that after I finish, we take the questions from the audience. Because in my view, what I have heard is very interesting, and actually from both of my colleagues over here and the panel. So let me start with something I didn't expect to see. Actually, I could expect to see this, but I didn't expect to see. I mean this flyer. I believe everyone received this in the materials given to the participants. And I would like everyone to pay the attention to this. And if you are not a prospective angel investor in Moscow, you might know someone. Please tell those people about this very interesting initiative. It is similar to what we have heard about the Flanders system of support. In a sense, it is a system of co-investing Moscow government money together with private business angels over here in Moscow. And of course, there is a limit. The main limit is the companies, the investee companies must be Moscow registered. You know, sort of touching the question you discussed. I'm starting with this because I think it's the most important thing after the Russian Venture Corporation seed fund invented 3 years ago in 2000, or maybe 2 years ago. I could be mistaken. The main difference from the Russian venture company seed fund, if we don't touch the fact that it's just for the Moscow registered companies, is that this Moscow seed fund is giving loans rather than equity, which means every business angel can later on repay the loan and become the sole investor of the company, while and the interest rate is going to be relatively low. I'm saying relatively because it's Russia, and the Moscow seed fund just cannot be as generous as the European funds in terms of interest rate, but still it's going to be relatively low. I'd say sufficiently lower than 10%, but I'm not sure because I'm not sure it's already finalized. And I view this idea of the Moscow Seed Fund and in general the idea of giving loans rather than equity financing to support the angels as a very, very, very prospective thing, because basically it all comes to the American small companies support in the form of so-called small business investment companies. The program started in 1957, as you can recall. And actually, in my view, the program which helped to start the Valley and the other type of innovation support in the States. Finishing with this announcement, I'd like to touch on the only important subject I view in this field. I mean the field of government support of early stage and seed or even pre-seed stage companies everywhere, and especially in Russia. The thing is that I cannot generalize because I don't have good knowledge of the foreign experience, but in Russia the government has a tendency to leave the decision-making, the investment decision-making in the hands of itself, meaning the hands of the people working for the government. And in my view, it's one of the major problems, because for example, in Russia Venture Corporation Seed Fund, the management, they are not investors themselves. It's not like general partner in venture fund. They don't invest even 1% of their money. And in my view, it changes their motivation very much. I'm not saying they are poor, they are bad people or something like that. It's just that everyone either investor or not. And if not, then the motivation is different. In this case, I mean the case of Moscow Seed Fund, the ideologist of this fund, Mr. Kostrov, whom many of you know, he's trying to solve this problem because the cooperation between the private person, meaning business angel, and the state-owned fund is organized in the way that the fund will give loans only for those enterprises which angel investors are already invested in. And in my view, this makes this organizational structure more, well, I cannot say it is more successful. I only can say the chances of success for this structure is much higher than, in my view, than for any other structure in which management has no personal risk of losing personal money, no risk of losing personal money. I'm not sure about Scotland or Belgium, but for Russia, of course, it's a big problem because the main thing we all know is that Soviet system didn't enrich people in private terms. The only thing people could have more or less expensive is a flat. Not everyone, but at least some of them. But it's not the essence to use a collateral for venture investment. Of course, there are some more or less rich people now, but not enough, of course. And because of that, the government support is vital for the development of this market. And we see how it started to flourish after Russia venture capital creation. But I guess this second step, the invention of the venture capital loans from the Moscow Seed Fund, will be followed by the other regions of Russia and maybe even by the federal government. Basically, if we return to the idea of Russia venture capital, it's also a structure of combining private and government sources. And in Russia, venture capital, venture corporation funds, the decision-making originally was given to the private co-investor, which was supposed to own 51% of the capital. But what actually happened in this case, in those funds, the management didn't invest themselves. And it's true about all the funds, maybe as far as I know at least. Because the owners of the general partner in those funds and the people who worked as a staff members of the general partner companies, they are not the same people. Which means that the new seed fund, which is supported actually by Moscow government and Russian Venture Corporation, is maybe the first in the real sense of the, maybe the first fund which will combine the private investor motivation with government money. And I wish this fund is successful. On this, I stop, and I'd like to offer the audience to ask questions, because I guess the presentations of my colleagues were very interesting, especially for those living in Russia. Could you take a microphone, please?
Hello, my name is Yuri Pakhamov. I represent Exosori Group. And my question is regarding your announcement about a Moscow Seed Fund. And the question is it a direct continuation of Moscow City subsidy program, which...
Yes, that's true.
So the conditions are more or less the same, apart from the fact that now it is not a subsidy, it is a loan, and it should be collateralized by a venture capitalist. Is that the case?
I can tell you exactly, actually. Sorry for saying yes before. This fund is a successor of the Moscow agency, which was headed by Mr. Alexei Kostrov for several years. And now the agency is being turned into the fund. But I'm not sure it's related to the subsidies you mentioned. I'm just not very familiar with the system.
Okay, thank you.
Спасибо, Vladimir. Hi, my name is Mike Gorski. I'm working for the Russian venture company mentioned just now. You explained to us, Nelson, how, well, and we all understand that it's important for the government to support business angels, and that's the best way to make it in a way that the government doesn't lose money, because angels help them. The problem is, and I'm afraid that during the whole discussion on that floor, it's like the elephant in a room, and that is that the business angels in Russia is, well, quite a rare species, like flying pigs or something. And few of the reasons are nobody officially has money enough to invest. There is no culture that sees that the rich person is a good person. So there is another one, disincentive, to call yourself an angel, besides that you probably didn't pay taxes on what you made. Well, and maybe there are some other reasons, but those are more or less enough. You explained that when you started in Scotland, I heard it this way, it was even illegal to be a business angel. That certainly wasn't the situation that we are in, because we are like 20 years on the free market, and Scotland is forever. But still, can you elaborate a bit? on the development of this big business angel movement in your country and something that we probably can learn from it?
Okay. We have been doing this for quite a long time. The Link organization, our federation or our network, was started in 1992-93. Sorry, yes, it's 92-93. And it has been an evolutionary approach. First of all, we started off as a network, pretty much like many others, where you were simply introducing entrepreneurs and angels in the same room, and you were hoping that they would somehow come together. What happened was that we accidentally discovered that if you form an investment club where you have 2 or 3 or 4 close friends who habitually invest together, they become more effective and more efficient. So we adopted a policy which is funded by the government to encourage our members to form these clubs within our network. So you have 20 of these clubs at the moment and about 2 or 3 in formation. And they vary. We don't control or say how they work. So some are 2 or 3 people who sold a business and want to continue to work together, so they use business angel activity for that. Others are larger groups of maybe 100 individuals who come together because they are attracted by the people within those groups. And it's been that group structure that's made it work, because the individual is not being asked to put up very large sums of money. The typical angel investment deal in Scotland is probably about 300 to 350,000 euros. But each individual is only putting up between 10 and 25. So we had a very similar problem to you about rich people not wanting to be identified as rich, particularly in Aberdeen, oil centre for Scotland. When they realised, oh, we only have to put up 10 or 20, they were much more comfortable about doing that. It also means, because you've got a big group of people investing together, you don't identify one person as the investor. You have this name. We have Archangel, we have Braveheart, we have other names of the group. So it's the group that is seen to do the deal, not the individual, and that takes the profile away from the other people. And we've worked very hard to do that. And what happens is we 3 have done a deal together. So we trust each other, we get to know how each other works, and then we tend to work more and more together. So I'll come back from holiday and find that he's agreed that I'm going to put money into this new company that he likes. But it works that way because we're friendly. And the social aspect is really very important as well. If I may, I think the best example of the social power of the angel grouping actually comes from America. We visited the American conference, and one of the groups in Salt Lake City, Angel Group, there are 3 criteria to become a member of the Angel Group. Well, 1, you have to be introduced by another member. But the 3 other criteria are, you like snowboarding, mountain biking, and sushi. Because in the summer they all go mountain biking together, in the winter they snowboard, and they have their meetings in a sushi restaurant. And it kind of emphasized that this isn't just about putting money into companies, it's about the social aspect of coming together as well. And that's a big driver to making it work.
I can perhaps add, because if you're talking about being acceptable as business angel towards community or towards government, we've tried some things to get the government involved in the system. By getting them involved, they implicitly say, okay, this is a good thing to do. So as a matter of fact, in co-financing schemes, saying, okay, we put money together with business angels, is approving business angels that they are doing a good thing. Also on the media side, we have had a lot of support from our government in promoting business angelship. We have television spots about business angelships in Flanders. So and they were paid through by the government. So we tried to make them really a partner. And well, once there was a time that the banks had a good image, so we tried to put a bank beside us, so they could also say, okay, business angel money is a regular system, and it's okay That was years ago. Obviously, the image of banks have shifted a little bit in Belgium, but also bringing good partners into the project and helping them to promote a business angel as being a good species.
Добрый день. Я представляю Академию наук, Институт экономики. У меня вопрос к Громковскому. Скажите, пожалуйста, есть ли какие-либо экспертные оценки о размерах, экспертного, конечно, венчурного капитала и, в частности, размера капитала бизнес-ангельского инвестирования? Я, например, знаю оценки Российской ассоциации венчурного инвестирования в районе 15 миллиардов рублей, что в целом, если ориентировочно перевести, будет составлять полмиллиарда долларов. Это первый вопрос. И второй. Недавно мне попалось обследование, где были представлены усредненные тоже оценки, какое количество стартового капитала нужно для того, чтобы сформировать стартап. Приблизительно сегодня в России на это требуется в среднем, есть отраслевые различия, порядка 53 миллионов рублей. Я тут сейчас прикинула, получается где-то порядка 1,7 миллиона долларов. Значит, наверное, это сложновато и очень трудно поднимать. Либо экспертные оценки не совсем корректны. Спасибо за ответ.
Let me first translate the answer in brief. The answer was, the question, I apologize. The question was about the amount of the venture capital in Russia and the amount necessary to start a new enterprise, a startup. Unfortunately, you see, I'm a venture capitalist and not a researcher. I'm not interested in those figures at all, so I cannot answer. I apologize for that. I wonder if Mr. Fokin can answer. Maybe he knows that as a boss of this National Association of Business Angels, but not me, sorry. Any other questions? Do you know the answers?
I do. 4.5 billion. Я вам отвечу, мы просто заказывали этот отчет, и, когда наши документы будут публичными, вы их увидите. Мы видим 4,5 миллиарда рынок венчурного капитала, сумма... Доллары? Конечно. Рубли на 30 надо умножить. Наша цифра 4,5 миллиарда. Мы потратили какие-то деньги на эти. Вот. Стартап, затраты, вы опять же ссылаетесь на наши исследования. Наши исследования говорят, что в течение 2 лет для того, чтобы компанию довести до успеха, нужно потратить там сколько-то миллионов, 2 миллиона долларов. Вот. На запуск напрямую мы не смотрели, но сколько стоит зарегистрировать компанию, вы знаете, 11 тысяч рублей. Это, пожалуй, все серьезные затраты. Ну, просто вопрос был про нашу.
Thank you so much. And over there.
Well, just a short comment on your remarks regarding a Russian venture company. My name is Sergey. I'm a venture consultant. Up to now, the Russian Venture Seed Fund is the most effective investment system in Russia. It's a small company, it's a small group of people, but the line of the product portfolio, the investment projects, it's amazing. It's just 2 years venture fund. Regarding the Moscow initiative, the question is, what's the interest rate will be on that loan? It should be lower than the commercial bank, but how lower? That's the main point if it's a loan. Thank you.
I can tell something about the Business Angel Plus loan, which I described. Well, the rate fluctuates with the rate on banking systems, but normally it's a prime rate plus 1% risk fee, so it's between 3.7 to 4% at the moment. So for a subordinated loan, it's a subordinated loan to be clear. It's very low, so you could say it's more or less like a subvention, but you have to pay it back, but it's very low, not market conform.
Any more questions? No more questions.
Okay. The last one, perhaps, because they made sign that 3 o'clock we have to be.
Здравствуйте. Я приехала из Казахстана, меня зовут Сауле Бишумбаева. Я представляю Национальное агентство технологического развития Казахстана. Мы вот многие годы являемся фондом фондов, как раз-таки формируем такие венчурные фонды, но, к сожалению, наш этот опыт не совсем успешный. В настоящее время Всемирный банк вышел с инициативой, чтобы в Казахстане создать ассоциацию, национальную ассоциацию бизнес-ангелов, то есть сообщество практиков. И мы уже провели 2 большие рабочие группы с правительством, с нацкомпаниями. В общем-то, есть уже положительное отношение общества, вообще нашего правительства к этому направлению. Однако, вот как вы сказали в своем докладе, что одним из рычагов является налоговое стимулирование. Вот как убедить правительство, как убедить Министерство финансов, чтобы они дали какие-то налоговые послабления бизнес-ангелам? Потому что это вообще сфера совершенно новая, это вообще новый вид инвестиций. Вот как убедить, как вы убеждали в своих странах правительство дать какие-то налоговые послабления?
Okay. The question is for you, Nelson, but I'm not sure you got the substance. So I'm trying. The question comes to the point: how to convince the government, in this case the Kazakhstan government, but maybe how did you convince your local government to give tax incentives to venture investment and business angel investment?
In terms of the tax incentive, the most recent experience I have is actually in Finland. And I was in Finland just before Christmas. I was taken by the Finnish business angels around the ministries of government there, and we basically presented them with the United Kingdom inland revenue data. We showed them our own government's data, and the Finnish government believed the other government data. The governments don't believe business angels' data, they'll believe the government. So we can give you that data.
Thank you very much. This was the last question. Let me think.
We were waved at by somebody a moment ago, I'm afraid.
We were what?
We had somebody telling us we had to finish.
Yeah, we have to finish, of course. Let me thank the audience for the patience, and let me apologize for the absent moderator. Thank you very much.